Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 434 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Kiran Agarwal. And if you want to hear about how Western medicine meets Eastern medicine, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm really excited. We have Kiran Agarwal coming in from the UK today. She is an MD, and I'm sure that she's going to give a whole new perspective on the medical system over in the UK. She's going to give a whole different system on how she grew her practice and some of the ideas about what she does to stay connected to her local community and how she stays healthy herself. So before we get into episode 434, I'm going to just let you guys know the big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Well, we protect freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is it's a fragile place to live right now, and we have to retain all of our lexicon and our languaging when it comes to chiropractic, and I'm sure the medical world as a whole. On top of that, we do protect the sacred trust. If you guys don't know what that means and you're watching this and you've never heard of chiropractic before, go look for BJ Palmer Sacred Trust, and you'll learn a whole lot about chiropractic. Go to your favorite search engine and look for that. And then these are chiropractic from the chiropractic lexicon, innate intelligence, universal intelligence, and subluxation. So we do support subluxation-based chiropractic, and we believe that man or woman, when they get adjusted, it connects the physical to the spiritual. And with that being said, Dr. Kiran Agarwal, welcome to the show.
Thank you, James. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate this opportunity to be able to share my experiences and learn more from everybody.
Well, I'm really excited about this episode because you are across the pond, as they say, and you come from a whole different perspective of the healthcare world. And I think we're going to get to some really good conversation about how you became who you are and where you see this the world going in the next 20 years, and maybe that will be something for people to stick around for to hear. But before we get into this episode, I'm really curious. Becoming a doctor, it's a big thing. And, whenever I interview like chiropractic students, I always, I see their eyes light up when I ask them, "Are you the first doctor in your family?" And they go back on their heels or sit back in their seat, and they have this like reality check that like, wow, I am the first doctor in my family, and it is a real honorable thing. So maybe you can share with our audience your story about how you became an MD, and just to know your friends, your family, your colleagues, your patients, they may listen to this and they might not know your story. So this might be a really good chance for them to be reintroduced to you.
Yeah, thank you. So James, I've always wanted to be a doctor. So I remember even when I was in, I don't know how you call it in US, but like year 5, 6, when I was 11, 12-year-old, the only thing I could think of to become was to study medicine and become a doctor. I couldn't tell why. I obviously, as a child, you do occasionally go to doctors. You feel that you have got the relief. Now, whether that was that, but once I got the bug that I wanted to be a doctor, I couldn't shake it off. I think I come from a family where I was lucky that girl education. So I originally come from India, and girl education wasn't a big thing in that part of my family. But my father really wanted his girls to be educated, so I was lucky in that sense. But it was too big a dream for any of us to think that, okay, you're educating your daughters and stuff, but to become a doctor was too big. Um, and when like I kind of announced that I wanted to be a doctor, everybody went into, "Are you crazy? You know what it is to become a doctor?" And lots of doubts. The friends I was with at the time, I'm still friends with them. Um, my my parents, uh, my closer relatives, they didn't get it that I was serious. um, Especially when education itself was a luxury for me. It wasn't something which was like, oh wow, go ahead and do it. It was more like, okay, you will get educated. That's good enough for you. Um, I remember, even locking myself up in the toilet and studying. I love learning. I love to study. And if things were busy in the household and I had something to read and there was no quiet place, and when I tell this to my son, he laughs at me that, "Mummy, you used to go to toilet and lock yourself up to read a book." I said, "Yes, I did that." Um, so one thing led to another. I found my way. It wasn't very easy because if you don't have a guidance or a path from anybody before you, if you do not have that, it makes it more challenging. But anyway, here I am, um, coming from that background, working as a doctor, as a family medicine doctor, and as an ENT specialist. So I've got dual qualifications in England, in London, and absolutely love it. I love, seeing people trying to solve their problems, trying to make them feel better in whatever way it's possible. So I'm not a fixed-minded doctor, I say. I try to understand the person, what the issue is, and how can we make it better. So that's the kind of doctor I wanted to be, and I'm glad to say that I have stuck to that kind of mindset rather than just following the guidelines. So guidelines are important, but they're not applicable to all the situations, to all the individuals. Um, and I was reflecting on this earlier this week, um, have I become the doctor I wanted to be as 11, 12-year old? Um, well, first of all, I am happy to be one. We're all going through a phase of learning, and I'm constantly learning still. It hasn't stopped. I don't have to lock myself up in toilet anymore. But yes, I feel that I am very much close to the doctor I wanted to be.
I think a lot of people are going to find courage from your story. And, one of my mentors once told me if I would just get out of my own way, I could change the world. And sometimes we have to get out of the way of a whole political system. Sometimes we have to get out of the way of the dogma of a culture.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to get out of the way of old, the way things were. And it sounds like that you've been able to do that and achieve through that. And 20 years as a practitioner, it's quite impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, there'll always be resistance to whatever you do, I guess. Some backgrounds, cultures will have more than others. Um, but I can only say thank you to everybody who supported me throughout this journey. And thank you to myself as well, because I believed I could do it. And I'll share more, once you become a doctor, you figure out that actually you're doing well. This is what how my perception is. It may not be every doctor's perception, but that you are more how do I say, diagnosing, treating, and monitoring. Um, but that's not how I see myself. I'm more okay, what is the problem with that person? Why have they got this disease? How do we understand to stop that? Okay, I'll treat now, but how do I go deeper? How do I know more about this person to make sure that not only this problem goes away, but no other comes their way? Um, that's just my passion. That's how I am. I can't change myself, James, and I decided not to change myself because I couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's also a really good stance on being the care provider, is doing it the best to your capacity and to follow a path that's best for outcome. And I think that that's a lot of times when I talk to chiropractors on the show, um, we just want to remove the interference.
Mm,
And the philosophy of chiropractic is your body needs nothing extra in it, simply no interference. If we can clear out the nervous system, then the body is a natural healing organism. So I
mm-hmm,
think that when you think about, the root cause of why somebody, like you said, gets a disease,
mm,
I think a lot of times it's incongruency with their nervous system, and they don't have a regulator going to the organ the way it's supposed to. There's not a proper nerve supply, and that's when inflammation sets in and the body starts to dysregulate, and that's when we get inflammation and some type of disease that sets in. So I think it's really important for you to make that stance to say, guidelines are guidelines, but the doctor that is the one in charge of the outcome is the one that's in charge of the decision making.
thank you. I mean, I definitely think there are different layers of any possible presentation. So, one of the things which I also firmly believe that one size fits all approach doesn't work. So, uh, I am more lifestyle minded, trying to understand what we can fix in this person's lifestyle and behavior, understand this person as a whole. But in certain circumstances, this may not work. So I definitely think there are different layers of medicine. To give you an example, um, so so there was, we call them patients, but I call them people. There was a person who's probably in the mid 40s, and they had a clot in the heart. I know that they had the perfect lifestyle, but they had a clot in the heart, which is a serious problem. And I couldn't think of anything they could have done to change the lifestyle. So I'm just giving you the more deeper layers of medicine, because I think lifestyle can fix that quite a lot, but there are more to it. There's few instances which, and that's why I have not gone in, not left medicine, if you see what I mean, because
Hmm.
I know that there are certain situations where we have to get to this more intense understanding of the disease rather than thinking just the lifestyle way. So one size fits all approach is slightly not my way of doing things. So just going back to the examples, um, so this person had a clot in the heart, which is, which is life threatening. But thankful to the medical world and things, this person has survived. And when they went through all the investigations, it was found that they had an inherited uh, clotting factor issue where the clots form more easily. In this person, I know, even if we did all the different modalities, they would not be able to stop that clot forming again and being a life-threatening issue. So they have to go in medicine. These are a handful of cases, but we do still have to figure out what will work for one person and what will not work for the other person. In another example, I recently saw a 35-year-old with emphysema, has never smoked in their life, has never smoked in their life, has very good lifestyle. But when we investigate further, they have got an alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency. And then we have to work more towards lung transplant on all those things because their lung volume is expanding. So it's about understanding that, what will work for majority will not work for everybody, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And in chiropractic, we call that limitations of matter.
Yeah.
And there are times when there is like a medical intervention that's needed. Obviously, we always like to use the philosophy of least invasive first,
Yes, yes. I fully agree with that approach. Yeah.
and take care of people with the least amount of intervention as you need to see if the body can respond. Because honestly, the placebo effect's pretty strong too. And if you tell somebody that you're treating them and they believe it, I mean, the mind is pretty powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And placebo is like 1/3 of the cases. So why wouldn't we exploit that? So placebo effect works in 30% of the population. And if it is not giving you any bad effects, then why wouldn't, and just gives you the positives?
Yeah, I think, as we talk more and more, people realize that It's mind, body, spirit, and it's a lot more than
It's connected. Yeah.
giving. It's a lot more than giving someone an outside in perspective, and it's a lot more about treating the whole person and understanding that lifestyle modifications, what we eat as a modifier, how much we consume of clean drinking water is a modifier, and just going to the basics, making sure that somebody's taking care of their body through exercise
Yeah.
regularly. I mean, a lot of the markers that you probably see within a person that comes and sees you are all improved when they drink more water, they sleep regularly, they work out once a day, and they're eating real food,
Yeah.
and they're staying hydrated. I mean,
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And at the same time, I say because most of the population, the sorry, I'm just revealing my practice. The excuse is I'm busy, but you know that's not an excuse. We can help you. I say I can help you to fit small, right habits into your busy schedule, so that it because even those are simple, but they're profound in their results. And we should not just make an, I'm sorry, in my mind, a lame excuse like I'm busy. We have to understand that's how our body works. That's how this body, mind, spirit, this whole connection works. And we have to understand that if we just put in the time, and it's not a lot of time if you're busy.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle.
I found a meme today.
Did you?
And it's a cartoon. It's the doctor cartoon talking to a patient cartoon. It says, what fits your busy schedule better, exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day?
Yeah.
And
That's a really good one. Yeah.
and I think when we think about it, sometimes we should find a little humor in life too. It shouldn't always be so serious.
Yeah.
But I believe that when people are pressed to make a big transition or a big change in their life or a betterment of their future, they have to think it almost as, why is this so important? And how did I get into the mess that I'm in today? And what can I do to change that? And that's when the recommendations of a healthcare provider become important. And that's why I believe that relationship becomes important in the healthcare arena as well. People have to know, like, and trust you. They have to believe you.
Yeah.
And if you don't build that bond and that relationship with them, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have. If you don't have patient compliancy, the whole thing's a mess.
Yeah. So I totally agree. And this is what I was talking to one of my appraisers. So in England, we have to have appraisal every year. That the first step of any relationship, whether it's a doctor or any other, is that first initial connection, the rapport. If there is no rapport, no matter how good the advice is, how caring the advice is, we cannot go any deeper. It's not about like you have a tonsillitis and you have antibiotics. These conversations need a proper connection. So yes, I agree.
Yeah, in chiropractic, the way that I've always been, led to understand, I've worked in clinics before.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we do a day one approach. Where we do an exam, consultation, health history, any imaging necessary, including X-ray, and we'll do some orthopedic exams on them. We'll do an insurance verification for them because we're in the States. And then second visit, they come back. What we do is called the report of findings. We tell them what we found, how much concern there is. We tell them how we can help them. And I call these first two visits the relationship builder.
Yeah.
It's the doctor's job to earn the trust of that person over those first two visits. So then there's a higher level of compliance and follow through.
Yeah.
If they don't build that relationship, then that person's going to go their own way and go back to the same lifestyle that they once had.
Exactly. And that reminds me of a study. So this was done in people with diabetes, and they found if the doctor just spent a compassionate conversation, a conversation where they connected to that person for even a couple of minutes, and that's not a lot of time, couple of minutes, if they just spend, building that relationship, that actually modifies the outcomes in people with diabetes for better.
Well, I
So
believe
we're not
it.
asking a lot, isn't it? We're not asking a lot.
No, but that's the human element of being a caregiver.
Yeah.
Is that's the part that sometimes gets set aside for speed and time.
Yeah.
Is people still want to be acknowledged, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want
Yeah.
to be valued, and they want to have a belief that the person that they're trusting their health to will give a care about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my practice, what I find that once you've connected, maybe the initial consultation can take a little bit longer because you're trying to set the base, the foundation. But once you get that firm, the subsequent consultations are so smooth, you understand each other. It's actually time saving in the long run. So if time is an issue, it's even more beneficial to do it that way.
Yeah, and actually, the long run, like you're saying, it's going to save time if you set the foundation properly from day one.
Yeah, yeah. And save time, you get better outcomes. Um, and it's not just for the individual, it is also the way sometimes I explain, and this is just not for people I see in the clinics, for my friends and family as well. As adults, we are a model of behavior for our children, for other children. Children, the next generation is always learning from us. I mean, we are all learning from each other, but we are the role models. So the onus is upon us to have those right behaviors, those right mindset. So if as a mum, I am not eating healthy or I'm not taking care of myself, and then I'm in a bad mood or I'm tired, what's my child going to learn? So it's
Yeah,
not about us, it's also about the different roles we have to play.
a lot comes down to personal responsibility and setting an example and leading and doing the thing the right way. And I think a lot of times we just need some encouragement and we need some please and thank yous in this life. And we
Yeah,
need some, you know, we need to show like, words of it, I think thank you goes a long way.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
when I worked in a clinic, I came up with little catchphrases, which when a person would come in or they would leave, I'd tell them to have a chiropractic day. And then, that developed into a different little catchphrases. I'd tell people, just go have fun today. And I think that a lot of times we forget those things too. We forget to just encourage people to have fun.
Yeah.
And reward it with acknowledgement.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That goes so far.
Let's go very far. That's small. We're talking about, and this is the main message. We're talking about small, little. We're not talking about tons of time. We're not talking about big changes in the habits. Even if you make small changes, and as caregivers, if you're just a little bit more like the first few minutes we spend, that's a game changer. And at least in my practice, it is.
Well, we've been on our own journey of conversation for the past 22 minutes. I really haven't stuck to our path of of questions. No, it's okay. I'm leading in a direction that I kind of pre-framed you into all these amazing questions that we're going to get onto, but I'm going to save time for a few of them. I am curious about one specific question. I think it's the one that you said was going to be the most impactful question that I asked. But where do you see the profession of healthcare going, medical care going, chiropractic care going? Where do you see things moving in the next 20 years?
So at the moment, I think there's a lot of negativity, or at least that's how I see it in this part of the world, about the way care is being provided. But when I just look at the elements like medicine, the different modalities, be it chiropractor or osteopathy or Ayurveda or homeopathy or any other forms like acupuncture. When I look at the more technological advances in medicine, the genetic component, the precision medicine, I just think the future of healthcare is bright. This is my perception. I think we are going to see, and people are demanding that. People are not satisfied with just giving them a pill, which is so good. I am not a doctor which gives pill easily out. If most patients have seen me, they probably will recognize that. And actually, people now find me so that I can cut their pills off. So it's no longer going to be, because not just that there are developments already. So all these seeds are there in different parts of the healthcare model, and then there's a demand from if I'm a patient, I demand a good care, a better care for myself. I forever one of my weak areas is back, so I'm always looking after my back in different ways rather than taking pills or something like that. I hate taking pills myself unless I have to. If I have a life-threatening condition, I definitely will. But the future, with all these different modalities, and then finding out what will work for this particular scenario, what will work for this particular individual, how do we make it more, positive outcome rather than just shrugging the shoulders, didn't work, sorry, try next thing. We have to put that thing in the beginning, we have to get it right from the beginning. Yes, we may have to review the model of care. We may not get it right every time, but that initial workup where we understand, okay, well, this is the reason why this person is having this, and these are different options which this person can choose, be it mainstream medicine, be it other allied sources, or is it genetics or whatever, and then figuring out how these two match, and then starting the journey rather than like, okay, well, for example, you've got blood pressure, take some tablets. That's essentially what's happening now, isn't it? Yes, there's some lifestyle advice given, but it's not very clear. Most of the patients, people with hypertension, unless they have had, grilled into them or done their own research, they're like confused. Okay, well, I eat less salt, but what else? We have to get this right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The future in my head, if anybody wants to be a doctor or be a healthcare professional, I think the future is bright. We have to work together. We have to work together for the person, for the individual who is asking us to give the best possible outcome with whatever is available. It's not just one tool. We cannot carry on saying, I've only got the hammer, I will not look at the spanner, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you're making a lot of sense, and I've always told people from my knowledge of chiropractic, I always bring it back home to chiropractic because that's what the show's about. But
Yeah.
when I really think about this, there's a whole lot to say about the health, the future of health, and it's really the person's responsibility. The number one doctor is inside of us, and that's the responsibility of the person. And I think that there's a lot of misfired, if you will, demand on the practitioner to heal people, but the people have to heal themselves. And I've learned that there's two doctors that people need in their life: one to keep them healthy and one to save them from dying. And I really believe that you should always have somebody on call that can save you from dying, but you should also have somebody on call on a more regular basis that can keep you healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the future of doctoring that I see. I see that people are going to have more dependency on lifestyle modification and knowing that the person of responsibility is them,
Yeah.
and not the great savior of the MD, the DC, synergistic approach. I do see that there's going to be more of a we're more alike than we are a different approach going forward when it comes to professionalism and cross referral and appreciation of other practitioners, because health is going to become more valuable, and it's going to be less dependent upon an insurance model. I really believe it's going to become more dependent upon a personal responsibility model. And you can't want somebody else to get you healthy. You
Yeah.
have to do that yourself.
Yeah, and that actually tells me a lot, because personal responsibility needs right information and right support. And I'm actually creating a group coaching program for exactly the same reason, because there's so much of misinformation about different elements of health, and people are confused. So, so when they start taking the responsibility, they need the right sources of information and right support system as well.
So I know we're coming up to the edge of our interview today. I'm kind of upset with myself that I didn't ask you the other 7 questions that I had written down here, 5 questions or so. I could probably talk to you for another 45 minutes to an hour based on where we've gone so far with our conversation, but we do try to keep these within a 30-minute window. Maybe I'll have you on in the future.
Oh yeah, I would love to come here, James, again. It was amazing to talk to you, and it's my first podcast interview, so thank you. So I'm sorry if I put you on the wrong track on this one. Sorry.
No, it was mostly my own doing, because I really enjoyed some of the things you were sharing. And
Oh,
that's the thing about being the interview person, is you get a chance to guide the conversation in a really good direction. And you offered a lot of good information and resources. But in closing, let's close out with a miracle story, and then give us some assets if people can reach out to you and how they can find you, and tell them about your group.
sure. I mean, I think like most head doctors and healthcare professionals, we all have, few miracle stories. I'll try to be as succinct and as short as possible. When I was thinking about, whenever I think about this particular case, so I was working as a house officer, a senior house officer in a medical ward where there were cancer patients being treated. And this 78-year-old man, he had acute leukemia, and he was going through his chemotherapy, and unfortunately one of the chemotherapy regimes, he was completely knocked off to the point that his kidneys were failing. His blood markers were all out of sync. So what we normally do when we are not sure what the outcome would be, and in this case we all expected as a team that, and I was the junior member, so they're specialists. So well, for me, this is a few years ago. We the decision was like, it's most likely not, he's not going to make it. And we called the family, and even some of his daughters came from abroad to say their final goodbye to him. And would you believe, James, next day I go to the ward, and he was able to do a lap in the ward with catheter in the hand. This is a man who we as a medical team thought is not going to make it. We can never be 100% sure. We know that we cannot predict, but we were at a point where we were ready, if you see what I mean. And that triggered like, what was right in this case, what happened in this case. And when I looked at his life story, he was a marathon runner. He ran London marathons even up to the age of 70, and he was very active, very good at his body. So his body recovered from that big shock the chemotherapy gave, to the point he survived, and day after day he got better. He had another chemotherapy. He had the most aggressive leukemias. And I've taken that with me, that, well, if you look after your body, it will pay you back when you need it most. And I can never forget that scene when I went to the ward next day. I was like, what? This man is up with a catheter bag in his hand, walking up and down the ward. I couldn't believe it. And I can't forget that scene. So that's probably one of the most miracle stories. I've got a few more, but I'll stick to that one for today.
Well, it goes back to the conversation. It's not the seed, it's the soil.
Mm.
And the seed was the sickness. The soil was a strong body. And the seed planted itself into the wrong body. And
Yeah.
with proper direction, the soil recovered and the seed was spit out. And I
Yeah.
think that when you understand that the body is that it's an amazing organism that is self-healing, and with the right direction, if you take care of yourself, it's not the end of days. It's a new beginning.
Yeah, and we all learned from them. It was amazing, story.
So I know people that are going to listen to this and watch this. If people want to stay connected to you, where can we send them to? And do you want to give a plug for your high achievers group?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So this whole thing is very new for me. I only came to social media and do all these things because I felt I could add some value by providing the right information. So currently I'm only on, Instagram. So it's my name, Dr. Kiran Agarwal. That's it. And a long day. It's night in England here. And for my high achievers, so it's a group coaching program, and I'm doing it with a lot of passion because I feel this is a high risk group for having stress and burnout. So what I am creating is a very bespoke program because I understand the pressures they're under so that they can have the right habits, not just health, but mental and spiritual at the same time, and understanding themselves. So it's a comprehensive supported program for high achievers. Anybody can access because it's a education program for them. And yeah, if you are interested, let me know. I will be more than happy to chat and share.
Well, Dr. Kiran, I really appreciate you being episode 434 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. It was a real honor.
Thank you very much, James. I mean, I loved talking to you and chatting to you. It didn't make me feel at all nervous. Will I say I was very nervous to start with. It was an absolute pleasure to be here and to be able to share some of my experience and learn from you as well. And you're doing a great job. You're doing an amazing job for spreading the right messages across. So thank you for what you're doing as well.
Well, it's a real honor to be able to hold space for people and to be able to produce what we do, and to be able to share truth in the healthcare world, because oftentimes it's a bit misconstrued. So thank you for being my guest today. And I want you to have a beautiful night over there in London, and hopefully you get some good rest tomorrow so you can get up and take care of a lot more people.
Thank you, James. Thank you. And I hope you also have a great day.
Thank you. And I'm going to close out by telling you guys you're one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.